Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Woke Wednesday. I've been waiting half the week for this day for a number of reasons, namely because, hi, Sheena. Hey, Andrew. Friends, I am just beside myself this week. And it's only fucking Wednesday, and I feel like I say this every fucking Wednesday. So you know what to do. If you've been here before, then drop an emoji expressing how you are feeling this week. You know that my emoji stays with the red face and the cursing words because that's how the fuck I feel on a regular basis. I am so over everything, but namely Joe Manchin's fucking ass. So drop an emoji in the comment section and let us all know how you are feeling. Welcome, 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 friends, to Woke Wednesday. Okay, so let me just get started because there's a lot to run through, and I'm going to start with Joe Manchin, and then we're going to go into guess who else is on my shit list this week. Apparently we have a Department of Justice that is totally okay with supporting whom? Donald Trump, a man that's been accused not once, not twice, not 3, 4, or 5 times, but over 22 times of sexual assault and harassment and rape. The Department of Justice under Merrick Garland decided that, yeah, they're cool with that, and so we're going to preserve an institution instead of preserving, accountability and responsibility of a wayward, criminal, misogynistic, racist president. But let me not go off the rails just yet. So let's start with Joe Manchin. Over last weekend, which now feels like, 86 years ago, because I feel like I'm living in fucking dog years. And if you have been following Woke Wednesday throughout the entire pandemic, which is when I started it, then you would know that I was hopeful that when we had a historic election and brought Democrats, the White House, the Senate, and the fucking House of Representatives, and staved off what I thought was going to be fascism, right, and authoritarian rule if Donald Trump were to get a second term, it seems as if I was completely fucking wrong, right? That I shouldn't have had hope, because what Democrats continue to show me is that they don't deserve to have the gavel. They don't deserve power because they don't know what the fuck to do with it when they have it. Right? It is evident. It seems to me, if I see one more goddamn headline that says, Dems have hit a roadblock with X, or Dems have hit a roadblock with Y, I'm thinking to myself, when was the last time over the last 10 years when Mitch McConnell was the leader of the Senate, did we ever see a headline that said that Mitch McConnell reached a roadblock in appointing over 300 federal judges, some of whom the American Bar Association said were unqualified? When was the last time you saw a headline that said that Mitch McConnell was at his wit's end trying to negotiate with Democrats? Or was it the fact that Mitch McConnell went on the Senate floor only a couple of weeks before the election to rush through his second stolen fucking justice seat? And when he said that Republicans have absolute power and don't need to wait on an election and don't need to cooperate with Democrats and can pretty much function as if we live in a one-party authoritarian rule. Does everybody fucking remember that, or am I the only one? Right? So here we have now the changing of the guard in 2020. People risk their lives, literally risk their fucking lives, to go and stand in line in some places for up to 10, 11 hours, right? In order to cast a ballot for Joe Biden, in order to cast a ballot to make sure that Nancy Pelosi kept the gavel, in order to cast a ballot, in order to make sure that Chuck Schumer would get the gavel and that we would take it out of Mitch McConnell's hands. And in all of our frenzy, in all of the history that was fucking made, you tell me in the last 6 fucking months since Joe Biden put his hand on the Bible, right, at inauguration, you tell me what exactly has changed. Now, I am not going to underestimate the fact that we are at a place where there are many states in this country that are reaching herd immunity. I am not going to discount the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came in with a plan to roll out vaccinations, and that if Donald Trump had still been in office, if he were reelected, that we would still be seeing countdowns of how many people were dying each and every day from the coronavirus, which he told everybody was a hoax. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump, if he had gotten a second term, would have been selling the vaccine to the highest bidder, and you wouldn't have been able to get it because it would have been, a money-making fucking grift for that administration. So I'm not discounting the fact that we are in a much healthier place as it pertains to the coronavirus right now. Kudos to them. Now, that aside, and the COVID relief package that they went in alone, aside from some of you being able to get, $400, right? What else has the Biden administration done exactly? Because they haven't secured our fucking democracy, right? They have now, the infrastructure plans, just like America's crumbling bridges and roads, have collapsed because Republicans don't want to come to the table on anything, right? So, okay, I'm sorry, $1,400. Some Americans received $1,400, not just $400. But here's the thing. That happened in when? February? Y'all still have those coins or nah? Was that supposed to stretch for the rest of the year or years to come? How many mortgage payments was that able to make? How many rents was that able to make? Right? So excuse me, yes, you're right. It was $1,400 that some Americans got. But there are still millions of Americans that are unemployed, and you have governors in at least 25 red states that are rolling back unemployment because they think that Americans are what? Fucking lazy. Do you know who they don't think is lazy though? Shareholders and CEOs that they voted in mass, right, to give major tax breaks to. So when it comes to helping Americans, giving us back our own tax dollars, the ones that we have worked for tirelessly, 40, 50, 60 hours a week for, they don't want to do that. Right? Because they think that if the federal government actually helps people, that decentivizes work. Meanwhile, every report that has come out during 2020 to talk about work can tell you that Americans have sent almost 10% more emails during this time. More work that they have put in, more hours that they have done. But according to Republicans, Americans are fucking lazy and don't deserve their own money back. But let's continue on with the Reaganomics and the trickle down. Now let me get to that motherfucker, Joe Manchin. So here's the thing. Joe Manchin comes out with an op-ed, which I'm not going to bore you with reading because I'm assuming as of this point in time, you have all actually read it, or at least read the highlights. But he comes out with this op-ed that says why I'm voting against the For the People Act. Just for the jump, right? The legislation, H.R. 1, which includes the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, right, among many other things, is called For the People. But this Democrat in sheep's fucking clothing decides that he's going to vote against it. Why is he voting against it? Well, let me tell you what he says at the top, and then I will tell you more about West Virginia because, we don't really know about West Virginia. Why? Because it's a state that, in all honesty, and excuse me if I offend anyone, doesn't fucking matter, right? They don't produce shit for America. Right? Nothing actually comes from West Virginia except for, that's right, coal and cancer. So, I'm confused about how Joe Manchin has this outsized power because he is senator of a state that doesn't actually do anything for the country. I digress. So let me go to the beginning of his op-ed, which says this. The right to vote is fundamental to our American democracy, and protecting that right should not be about party or politics. Least of all, protecting this right, which is a value I share, should never be done in a partisan manner. Folks, let me ask you this. What piece of legislation have Democrats rolled out in the past year that have restricted to the right to vote? Now, tell me, of the 340 some odd fucking pieces of legislation that have rolled out over 47 states in this country, with 14 being passed, with the most egregious being in Texas, not to be outdone by fucking Georgia, you tell me, when was a time that Democrats were in office and they passed a piece of partisan voting legislation that would restrict people's right to vote? When was the last time that Democrats passed a piece of legislation that said that if you provided food and water to those waiting in line for 10 and 11 hours with their fucking children in the hot sun, if you're in the South, when was the last time that Democrats did that? Just tell me, how was it that even the members of the Trump administration said that this was 2020's election was the most secure election of all time, right? That happened during a fucking pandemic, but now you want to roll back mail-in ballots. Now you want to pick up voting boxes in different counties that are highly populous because you think that you are what? Legislating a fucking lie is what they are doing. So this piece of shit, which should have never been published, but again, West Virginia, this piece of trash, right, should be printed out and used as fucking toilet paper or to line a cat's litter box, okay? Because it's not worthy to wipe my ass. But let me say this. When he talks about partisanship and he talks about the unwillingness, right, of Democrats and Republicans to vote, to come together, understand that in order for the Voting Rights Act to get passed in the Senate because of the filibuster, which, you know, he thoroughly believes in, right, because he's an institutionalist, which, folks, you will continue to hear that term over and over again, and understand that these people are willing. Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema in fucking Arizona are willing to preserve something that was never written out in the Constitution. So they are willing to blow up our democracy as it stands so that they can preserve some piece of bullshit rule that wasn't introduced until the late 1800s. When was it introduced? When was the filibuster introduced? During Reconstruction. Why was it introduced during Reconstruction? Because that was back when Democrats were Republicans and wanted to keep slavery. And so in order for us to actually have Reconstruction, they needed to introduce a way for compromise to happen because, you know, we had just come from war. Folks, when I tell you that I am through, when I say to you that I have rubbed peppermint oil in my hands, I am drinking peppermint tea to cool myself down from the rage that I am filled with, because here's the thing. We, as the American people, we did our fucking jobs in November. We did more than our jobs. We did better than we had ever done before. Historic numbers in every single community. But what Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema are telling us is that they don't give a fuck. And let me tell you why Joe Manchin doesn't give a fuck. So let me run some numbers for you as it pertains to West Virginia. And I say quotes because I don't even consider it a real fucking state. And even people who are bordering in Virginia don't consider West Virginia a real fucking state. But let me talk to you about Joe Manchin's power in this bullshit state. West Virginia's population, folks, is 1.8 million. I am pretty sure that is the population of Brooklyn, right? In New York. 1.8 million people live in the entirety of the state of West Virginia. Okay? That is down 3% according to 2020, right? Here is the real reason why Joe Manchin doesn't give a fuck. Because 93% of the state is white. 3.6% of the state is black. Now let me pause here for a minute and say this. So yesterday, the the president of the NAACP, Derek Johnson, along with Reverend Al, went to meet with Joe Manchin to talk to him about how his obstructionism is actually going to hurt Black and brown people. And I'm pretty sure that Joe Manchin sat there with his stupid fucking grin and said, yeah, that seems terrible for you. But guess what? I only have 3.6% Black people in my state, and so essentially, they don't really fucking matter. And they probably don't even have an NAACP chapter here. And so, really, thank you for the visit, but you can fuck off now, right? Because at the end of the day, this isn't about preserving democracy for Joe Manchin. This is about preserving power in his little fiefdom in the country. Because you see, when you go further into the demographic breakdown of West Virginia and just you look at the economics of the state, you look at the numbers. So the median house value is $119,000. $119,000. That's how much it costs to live in West Virginia. Okay. The median rent is $725, right? And that's, median. I'm pretty sure that you could probably rent there for maybe $300-400 a month. But this is where things are really important. Only 20% of the state of West Virginia has a bachelor's degree. 20% of the entire state went to college and finished and have a bachelor's degree. So not only is it poor, right, in terms of wealth, because the median income here is $46,000, right? So not only do they not have any real industry since we've shut down coal plants because fucking climate change, they don't have any college education. So when we look at the actual breakdown of the Democratic Party, right, and we are thinking about the future of the Democratic Party, and we are talking about demographic shifts, and we are saying who actually brought Joe Biden into the White House, who saved his ass and saved this country, Black women, and Black people, and indigenous people who came out in flipping Arizona, right? When we look at who is the Democratic Party, we are looking at people of color, we are looking at young people, we are looking at people that have college degrees, we are looking at a multicultural, multi-ethnic, highly educated group of fucking people. That is not Joe Manchin's constituency. So he doesn't give a fuck. Not only does he not have to care, right? Because he's going to continue to get voted in. Because you know who he's appealing to? The 69% of people in his state that voted for Donald Trump. West Virginia has the highest percentage of people that voted for Donald Trump with a Democratic senator, right? So Joe Manchin, much like Donald Trump, much like Mitch McConnell and the rest of them, is just playing to their base. He could give a fuck about what this is going to do for democracy as a whole. Because folks, this is the thing that everyone has to understand, is that we all thought that the election was enough. But what you are seeing is that Democrats stupidly only pay attention to up-ballot races. But you see what they are doing down ballot at the state level? The state level is where they are instituting all of these fucking voter suppression laws. And without a federal mandate, without federal protections, we are fucked. Because let me tell you what they are setting up right now. They are setting it up so that if a Democrat wins anywhere, in any of these number of states where they have put these laws in, that they have instituted an ability for people to sue, right? so that they are going to ensure that a Democrat never actually holds office. And now, before folks say, well, if they sue, the courts, remember that Mitch McConnell put over 300 federal judges on the bench and then stole 2 Supreme Court seats. So, folks, what we have here is an exactly perfect fucking storm for authoritarian takeover and minority rule. That's what they've done. People keep asking, well, where is the Mitch McConnell on the left? Where is, where was our attention to the courts? The Republicans have the Federalist Society. The Federalist Society is where they have built up in their little dark rooms their list of 700,000 of right-wing judges, so that anytime a Republican administration comes in, they're like, here you go, here you go. Republicans didn't come up with an agenda in 2020. Do you know why? Because they don't need one to steal an election. You don't need to have an agenda when you own the courts. Everyone keeps saying, my other thing that I can't fucking stand? And let me take a breath. The other thing that I can't fucking stand is this whole fucking thing. When people want to use this quote of, history will remember them. History will remember them. History will remember them. Folks, who the fuck you think is writing the history books? Who the fuck do you think just passed legislation so that we don't ever talk about critical race theory, aka history through the lens of non-white straight men? Who do you think has just basically turned slavery into, an unpaid internship? So when we say that history is going to remember him, whose history? Because not the history, not in the public school system that you're sending your fucking kids to. Because you remember that a majority of America's textbooks that flood into our public school system come from where? Texas. And what did the Texas Republican legislator just do? They just banned the teaching of the 1619 Project. They also just banned the teaching of the insurrection. If you teach about the insurrection, if you even call it the insurrection, if you even bring it up, you as a teacher, as a district, are going to lose state funding and possibly be fired. Folks, this is not hyperbole. This is not, oh, Danielle, relax. The sky isn't falling. Everything's going to be great. No, the fuck, it is not. Republicans have been playing at a 50,000 foot level. They have been playing a 30, 40 year long game to get to this point. They stumbled upon Donald Trump's authoritarian dumbass, and because he didn't know anything about politics, they could manipulate him and use him as the puppet, empty shell piece of shit that he is. Right? Because he just goes where you kiss that man's ass enough and he will do whatever it is that you need. But the thing is, they have been planning this. Because while we have been paying attention to the demographic shift, while we have been, getting really excited, as fucking Joe Biden mentioned during his visit to Tulsa, oh, look at these Geico commercials. That's progress. Bitch, what? That's capitalism. Are you crazy? That's not what progress looks like. Because if you remember a couple of years ago, when there was an interracial couple in a Cheerios commercial, they almost wanted to boycott Cheerios and GM altogether. And by they, I mean white people. I mean racist, redneck, white people. And the reality is this, folks. None of this is getting any better. Because when I'm talking about the fact that we now have no bipartisan commission to investigate the insurrection that occurred, because, that's kind of like the police investigating themselves for killing unarmed black people. It doesn't actually fucking happen. So, of course, you're not going to investigate yourself, because then you would be showing your hand, which is that, you were a part of the insurrection. Thank God for Representative Eric Swalwell, who has decided to sue one of his colleagues and finally was able to issue a lawsuit, right? Mo Brooks, like, because we are at a point where if we are not taking things into our own hands, folks, if we are relying on people to do the right thing, we keep talking about morality as if Mitch McConnell has a heart, as if Bill Barr operated from that place. He fucking told us in a CBS interview in 2019 or 2020 that, like, yeah, I'm about done. Like, I'm retiring after this. I could give a fuck about my legacy. So the reality here, folks, is that this is the big setup. And Democrats are out here playing fucking hopscotch, bringing I don't even know, a paperclip to a gun battle, and they got nuclear explosives, and our Republican legislatures have turned into absolute fucking suicide bomber terrorists. Like, this is the situation that we're in. And so when AOC tweets out and says, like, y'all still sitting around here wanting to play patty cake with these motherfuckers and they want to blow your head off. Like, they sat there during the insurrection and were just like waiting because they knew, for whatever reason, some of them looked real fucking calm, like they knew nobody was coming after them. Meanwhile, AOC and others are hiding under desks and in bathrooms. Like, this is the setup, folks. So let me run it down for you again with the 2 minutes that I have left. Mitch McConnell, over the last several years of the Obama administration, stopped Barack Obama from being able to appoint any judges. And instead of Democrats and the Obama administration suing the fuck out of Mitch McConnell, right, for his unconstitutional behavior, instead of them doing that, they let a Supreme Court seat go. And then they allowed for 300 vacancies to just sit. Then they thought, right, oh, okay, well, Hillary Clinton is going to win, of course, so we don't really need to do any groundwork in any of these states. We pretty much have let the South be taken over by the Klan, so we don't have to do any work there. Thank God for Stacey Abrams. Thank God for Latasha. Thank God for these people who didn't give up on their own people and actually invested in people of color and were able to turn Georgia blue and were able to turn Arizona blue. That wasn't the fucking... That was not the work of the DNC, right? It sure as fuck wasn't the work of the Obama administration building a pipeline, right? It is always left to us to do for us, right? So during that time, you have vacancies on federal benches that were not filled. You have a vacancy in the Supreme Court that was not filled. Then they go ahead and they collude with Putin, who really didn't have to do much heavy lifting, because when Democrats don't show up to work, right, they just came in and filled the fucking void. So now you have Hillary Clinton, oops, doesn't win the election. Donald Trump slides in, 300 vacancies open, 2 Supreme Court seats. So you wonder why Texas right now is passing these fucking embryo bills, because I'm not going to call them a heartbeat bill, because there is no fucking heartbeat at 6 weeks. So don't fall for that fucking rope-a-dope. They're passing these unconstitutional pieces of legislation because they know that it's going to go up to where? It's going to appeal to the Supreme Court, where we have a 6-3 fucking split. Folks, this has been done for a long time. And so don't ask me why we have Democrats still fucking tap dancing and wanting to pretend that they aren't the only political party and that now the Republicans might as well be the new Confederates. So they want to whitewash our children's education to continue to uphold white supremacy because, as I've said on Woke AF Daily, which if you have not subscribed to, you should, patreon.com/wokeaf, $5 a month for me, hours and hours a week. Folks, everything that they're doing is not happening in a vacuum. It's not happening in a silo. All of it is connected. And the reality is that we have a very spineless jellyfish type of party who thinks that they are going to, shame people into doing the right thing. I don't know how many times, as Maya Angelou has said, how many times people have to show you who the fuck they are before you recognize who the fuck they are. If you would not get them to vote on a bipartisan piece of legislation, a bipartisan commission, right? Understand that Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell sent their Republican colleague to go negotiate, get all of the things that they wanted, right? The ability to both call subpoenas, the ability to have equal representation on the 1-6 commission, only to turn around and be like, yeah, nah, we don't actually want this. So if you know that the people that you're trying to operate with and come to the table with aren't operating in good faith, then it's time to course fucking correct. But right now, our democracy is over a cliff. This administration has roughly maybe a year and a half left because 2020 midterms, trust and believe, with all of the voter suppression laws, with Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema telling us that they're not going to end the filibuster, that they're not going to vote for HR 1, that they wouldn't even vote for HR 4, right? Which is just the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. You have Mitch McConnell that came out and said that he's not voting for that. So who do you think is going to be set up to win in 2022 midterms? We have slim fucking margins in both the House and the Senate. Folks, I am telling you, the fix has been in, right? We thought that Donald Trump was bad. Donald Trump just allowed these people to take their hoods off, stretch their arms out, and do their fucking worst. And now we have a Democratic Party that still thinks that they are operating in 1995. Bitch, if they don't wake the fuck up. And then we have, and the last thing I will say, because I'm 4 minutes over time, but there is just so much. The last thing that I will say is this. And now, I had faith, right, in Merrick Garland. I had faith that having been screwed over for an entire year when he was supposed to become a Supreme Court justice, that having lived through the Trump administration, right, having lived through being humiliated by Mitch McConnell, that he would have gotten woke to who the fuck these people are. But let me tell you, on top of what Mitch McConnell did to E. Jean Carroll, who said, and I believe her, was raped by Donald Trump in a department store in New York City, but the statute of limitation ran out on her to be able to accuse Donald Trump of rape, right? And actually press charges. So then she turned around and she decided to press charges on Donald Trump for defamation of character. Because Donald Trump, while president of the United States, decided to use his bully pulpit to shame her, to lie about her character, to smear her name. The Department of Justice yesterday came out and said, oh, well, if the president of the United States does it, evidently it's okay. So they're going to defend Donald Trump in court. Yes, folks, that's what Merrick Garland did, because you know what? He's an institutionalist. I don't know what the fucking institution matters if your democracy is up in flames, but what do I know? I didn't go to law school. And the second thing that this Department of Justice did just today, which was announced, is guess who else they have decided to defend? Oh, religious schools, so that they can continue to discriminate against LGBTQ kids during Pride Month. So while the White House wants to put up their rainbow flags and sell their rainbow Biden shirts, their Department of Justice has just said that it is absolutely okay to continue to discriminate against LGBTQ kids. So tell me how that is different than the law that Ron DeSantis just passed telling trans girls that they can't play sports. There are times, folks, when you have to understand that the institutions and the systems are wrong. That they are built on misogyny and racism, transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, all of them. And that there is a time when push comes to shove and you have to do the right thing. But They would rather defend an institution than defend our country. So what does that tell you? Folks, all I can say is this. There is a storm that is headed our way. And if you do not ground yourself in some radical self-care, if you do not protect your energy and your vibration for this storm ahead, you will not make it. I can tell you this, dear friends, that on Woke AF, even though I scream and rant on a regular basis, right? Yelling sometimes that I feel like I'm doing so into the ether, I am doubling and tripling down on my self-care. I am doing everything to keep myself not only sane, but resting in joy. Because they will not rob me of that. Okay? Because that is the point. The point is hopelessness. Because when you get to a hopeless and dark place, you give up and you stop fighting because you say to yourself, why? It doesn't matter. Well, let me tell you something. If our ancestors had stopped fighting, none of us would fucking be here. We are the product of warriors. And so to ensure that the fight continues, we need to ensure our sanity, right? And we do so by guarding our energy and our vibration. So after this, pour yourself a cocktail, do a meditation, make some tea, do some woo-saw, sit with yourself, but understand we will make it through. We will do so together. We will be infuriated, but we will dance it out. We will talk it out. We will love it out because that's the only choice that we have. That is it for me today, folks, on this very long Woke Wednesday. If you want more of me, please do consider supporting independent Black queer voices like mine on patreon.com/wokeaf. Again, it is $5 a month. I do 5 shows a week, 1 hour long. Again, patreon.com/wokeaf. I will see you back here, y'all, next Wednesday. If there is a country left, I pray to God, whoever you pray to. All right, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke and stay woke as fuck.